And Vic, yesterday, even the witnesses are having a hard time keeping it together on the witness stand. We had Charles McMillan, who was sobbing, so much so that the judge called a break. Overall, this affects the jury too, watching those testify who were there reliving this moment, breaking down in a way like that.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And to take emotion out of this equation would be foolish, both for the prosecution and the defense. Now, it's too early for us, I believe, respectfully, to reach a conclusion as to guilt or innocence. But we should say that if we're given a blueprint or a framework, or let's say a map on the way a prosecutorial case should go at this point in time with this type of testimony and this type of evidence and this type of a charge, this is exactly the blueprint. You come out fighting, you show the most emotional testimony, and you watch the person who actually passed away go through that multiple times. The effect of that is tremendous, but it's also important and incumbent upon the judge and the defense attorneys to pull back a bit and then to concentrate on excising or removing emotion from any of the courtroom proceedings. You should understand, if you show juries who have never seen even a deceased individual on an autopsy table these types of pictures, they will have an enormous amount of pent up energy and emotion that just sort of comes out in a cathartic way. So, seeing tears and emotions, surely in this type of testimony, is not surprising. But yet again, we've only seen a couple, 3 days of evidence. So, the jury is actually still out.
Yes, you are correct. Let's take a listen to a bit of Charles McMillan's testimony. Again, he was the first bystander to arrive really on the scene and probably the one that watched most, if not all, of George Floyd's encounter with police. Let's listen.
There are also, before that, some statements about you can't win, get up and get in the car. Was that also you?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, was that what you were describing earlier, just trying to help with him? Could you describe what you were trying to do at that point?
Basically, what I'm saying is we can't win because once, like I said before, once the police get the cops on you, you can't win. So I'm trying to tell them just cooperate with them, get up, if you can, get in the car, go with them, you can win.
And did he say I can't to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you understand him to be talking to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you were saying, you know, your knee on his neck, what were you concerned in that moment?
Yes, ma'am.
And why was that?
Because he started saying I can't breathe, you know, my stomach hurt. You know, he's saying things that may believe that he's in trouble.
When you say in trouble, what do you mean by that?
He's gonna die.
So, Kyla, this is the witness who is describing what's happening before the 9 minutes and 29 seconds that is at the heart of the prosecution's case. And he's one of many offering firsthand eyewitness testimony, video through surveillance video, as well as Charles Belfry, who had video of the encounter before police even arrived, parking behind George Floyd's vehicle. So it's important, though, for the prosecution, Kylie, to put this in to show the complete picture from the very beginning when George Floyd arrived to 38th in Chicago.
African American, older male. I think that it's more packed, his words, you can't win. He's seen the transition of, I'm not sure how old he is, but he's seen the transition of how cops have interacted with African American people in general. So by him saying you can't win, to me, it signals more than that. It signals they already have you, just please comply, because if you don't, you will die. And that's ultimately what happened here, is that he died. And I have so much empathy for this particular witness because, like you said, he was there for the entire encounter. Before people started coming out and watching what was going on, he was there. What I'm hopeful about is just that he was a calming voice for Mr. Floyd before he passed away, you know, talking him through it. Hey, you know, just go with them. You can't win, you know, just, you know, calm down, calm down. So, you know, he was really trying to ease the situation, especially for Mr. Floyd, where he could see that this individual was likely about to die.
Another witness that the jury heard from yesterday, a key witness because he served a dual purpose, Christopher Martin. He was the first employee that we hear from the cut food store that actually took the fake $20 bill from George Floyd in that transaction. And then he turns into a bystander and describes for the jury what he heard and saw that night. Let's take a listen to his testimony.
Did you make a recording?
Correct.
Did you keep that recording?
No.
Why not?
Later on that night, I deleted it because when they picked George up off of the ground, the ambulance went straight on 38th instead of going straight on Chicago. And if you live in South Minneapolis, the easiest way to get to the hospital would have been straight on Chicago. So that to me kind of made it like clear that he was no longer with us.
So you thought he had died?
Correct.
Not quite sure why that would, make you delete the video.
Oh, I just didn't want to have to show it to anyone or be questioned about it.
It's just heartbreaking. You can hear the emotion in his voice reliving what happened. And he told the jury at one point he feels disbelief and guilt still to this day. Vic, a key part of his testimony, though, was for this jury to see never before seen video from inside the Cup Food store, surveillance video, and it's eerie, a little bit surreal to see George Floyd moments before his arrest and his pending death, to watch how his behavior, how he's acting. He seems jovial. Of course, testimony from Chris Martin is that his speech was slurred, delayed, that he, in his opinion, thought he was high. But Vic, the jury seeing this video, really does it not humanize George Floyd knowing what happens to him?
Yes, it humanizes George Floyd, and that's a double-edged sword. Let's not forget that the defense argument in this case will center around causation. What cocktail or polynarcotics may have had an influence on the death of George Floyd? So George Floyd's mannerisms, his actions, his demeanor, potential lack of responsiveness that was described by Mr. Martin are striking at the heart of this entire case. If you take emotion out of this, Chandler, you just forget about emotion and how heart-wrenching it is to see an individual pass right before your eyes and one of our own brethren losing their lives, God rest his soul. You have to look at what the contested fact is. And the contested facts are going to revolve around what was in Mr. Floyd's system that could have caused and at least been a majority contributory cause for the death. And so by observing the mannerisms, we can now see what expert witnesses will use as their foundation for their testimony to be presented regarding the effect of the cocktail of narcotics that was in his system at the time. So absolutely, it humanizes him, and it is by no measure anything other than a double-edged sword once we see the proof fill in the gaps here.
Yes, you're correct. A trend with all of the videos that really this jury is watching cuts both ways.